Hello everyone, in the next few video lectures, I'm going to introduce Stata, the statistical software package that is very popular, powerful, and user-friendly. In this first session, we're going to learn the basics of Stata and use simple comments to examine the descriptive statistics. So to open Stata, you can basically click on the Start window or search for the Stata program. If you click on this, Stata will launch for you. If you have any shortcut icon created on your desktop, you can easily double-click on that shortcut to launch Stata. Alternatively, if you have any files that's created and saved with Stata, you can double-click on those files and the Stata program will open as well. The most two popular Stata files are the DTA Stata data file and GPH Stata graph file. For example, I have a Stata data file, the session 1 example. If I double-click on the data file, the Stata will launch successfully. And also, because it's a data file, you have successfully loaded the data with two variables under the variable window. I have another Stata graph file saved in my folder. If I double-click on this graph file, you will see the Stata program being successfully launched, and this graph window will also automatically open for you. The graph was previously created and saved with Stata. If you close this graph window, the Stata program is still on, but you do not have any datasets that's loaded. Okay. By the way, you can have multiple Stata windows to work with at the same time. But now I'm going to close the second and third window to start Stata in a clean view. Let's take a look at the opening screen with Stata. First of all, the top row, you have a set of menus: File, Edit, Data, Graphics, Statistics, User, Window, and Help. I mostly use this File toolbar to, for example, open data, save or save as data, or import and export some Excel files to and from Stata, which I will show you in a moment. So for the rest of the tools, I recommend us to use and learn to use Stata commands to operate those functions. In the second row, you have some frequently used Stata functions. For example, if you launch a blank Stata program, you can use this open file and load your Stata dataset. So again, now we have two variables loaded. If you made any modifications to your dataset, you can save your file, or alternatively, if you do not want to replace your original data, you can use save as and to save it in a different file with a different name. You can print your result, and you have some log file, actually a dual file editor, which I will introduce later. So if you have the data successfully loaded, you can probably use the next two data editor tool. The second tool is called Data Editor Bloss. If you open on it, it is not an editable table. You basically can just take a look at all the observations and all the variables you have. Alternatively, you have an editable table tool, which is the Data Editor Edit function. Here, you can basically click on any observations, make modifications, or you can type new observations in the empty cell. Another very useful function in this Data Editor Edit function is if you have an Excel table and you'd like to insert any additional observation or any additional variable or columns into Stata. Basically, you can copy that column and click copy, and because you want to paste it in the third column, so first choose the third column If you want to paste it in any other columns, choose that column and then click paste. It will ask you whether the first observation is a variable name or data. In our case, the first observation is a variable name, so make sure you choose variable name. There's an arrow because I actually have the same variable name. Click OK to acknowledge that arrow, and Stata will actually rename the same name as variable 3. Okay, I'll just leave it here. Stata is very friendly with Stata because you can easily import and export table from one another. Okay, for example, if you save your current data file, let me use save as, you're going to save your data as a Stata data file. But if you'd like to save your data as an Excel file, you're going to go to File and Export and Data to Excel spreadsheet. Here, you can list the variable name to just export any variables that you want, or you can leave it empty for exporting all variables. And you're going to use this save as to save your Stata table. For example, I'm going to save it as chapter 2 rating table. Save. One thing you want to be a little bit careful is usually this option is selected because you usually want to save the variable name to the first row in the Excel file. So if you click OK, actually a Stata Command is automatically generated for you. So if you examine the folder, you have a Stata file that's exported into Excel. Okay, and you can work with Excel. Alternatively, if you use, let me open another Excel window to show you. Alternatively, if you do not want to copy paste any single columns or lots of columns into the data editor, you can import the whole Excel. So go to File, Import, Excel Spreadsheet, and then you can try to import the whole Chapter 2 data. By the way, in the Chapter 2 data, I actually have 2 worksheets from the 2 in-class examples. So you do need to tell Excel which worksheet you are going to import. So you have some preview here. I'm going to import the worksheet number 2, and also make sure that you're importing the first row as a variable name. So now it looks good. I click OK, and I have my 2 variables. Actually, only 1 variable. The first column is just the observation ID. I have my variable successfully loaded. Okay. So now let's take a look at the 5 additional windows we have on Stata. The Review window, Result window, Comment window, Variable window, and the Properties window. So every time you open a Stata, feel free to adjust the size of each window so that you feel comfortable working and reading all the windows. So the first result window, which is the main body of the Stata window, it gives you all the recent comments, and the output of the comment or any error message will show for you. You can easily scroll on the right to see earlier results and earlier outputs. However, it only keeps 5 lines of the most recent result. If you keep giving it more comments and results, it will just clear the previous one and always save the most recent 500 lines. However, if you close the Stata window, you're going to lose all of your comments and your results. That's why later on I'm going to show you how to use a log file to store your output, and also a do file to actually store all of your comments, to organize all of your comments. The next wheel is the comment wheel, which is on the bottom of your Stata window. Okay. Basically, this is the place where you give Stata a command and you execute the command by click on the Enter key. Sometimes you may also want to produce some additional notes and comments so that it can be stored together with your command in the log file. If that's the case, you're going to enter a star first and then write down your comments. So in that case, Stata will not recognize it as a comment. It will not execute that sentence, but your result window will also show that description. Okay, the variable window basically lists all the variables on a loaded data set. If you double click on the variable, it will also insert that into the command window. So sometimes if you have a long list of variables, so instead of typing each of the variables, I'm typing right now into the command window. Alternatively, you can just double click on the variable name and the variables will be inserted to your command window. You do not need to type them yourself. This is especially useful when you have very long variable names or variable names that's very hard to spell. Okay. The review window, which is on the left-hand side, is also called history. This basically stores all the comments that you have used previously. Okay. List all recent comments. You can also click on to copy it to the command window and you can re-execute it. Sometimes if you have a long row of comment and you only want to make very little change, for example, you have the same comment but only to change the different variables, you can click on this comment and change something and then click enter again. So this basically allows you to save some time to not retype the whole line of comments. The last one, which is the least useful, is the properties window. It just provides information about the variables in an open dataset, and it includes the name, the label, the type, and the dataset information. Okay, so right now my variable 3 is kind of selected here. So in this property window, you see that the variable name is var3, there's no label, and the type is a numerical data set, and it's the file name and the size of the variables, and so on. Okay. So the most important thing of learning Stata is to use Stata command to produce statistical result. So as I said, Stata is very user-friendly because it has very easy to understand comments. And the basic comment, the basic logic is just comment any comments that we're going to learn, and then plus some variable names. And if you have additional options, then comma option. You sometimes will use some if statement to give some additional criteria on the observations that you are going to work with. So if that's the case, you have comment, variable name, some if expression, comma, any options. So the options are, again, optional. All Stata command in this course will be colored in purple, okay? And sometimes I will provide some general command line. If I write a name, this is where you should replace this name as your own name. For example, you can create your own log file name or your own file name. So you should probably replace the name as assignment 1 or your own first name plus last name and so on. If you see VAR, this is basically where you should replace with a general variable name. Okay. Sometimes you also see variable with a plural in the parentheses. This is to say that your comment can be applied to one single variable or multiple variables at once. Not all the comments can be applied to multiple variables. So if that's the case, I will try my best to indicate them for you. Okay, so if I put cat variable, this is the place where this variable has to be only the categorical data. The last thing is, while you're watching this video lecture, please keep your own notes, because sometimes I may give more examples in the Stata window without listing all of them in this lecture slides. Okay, so let's get started with some basic comments to examine descriptive statistics. So to create descriptive statistic or summary statistic for qualitative data, the most frequently used comment is summarize. It's called summarize. In Stata, abbreviation is allowed. So if you use summarize or if you use sum, the operation is exactly the same. The comments are exactly the same. Okay? So the sum variable can be applied to one variable or one single variable or multiple variables. And if you do not list the variable, it will assume to summarize all variables you have. Okay, so now let's try to work on a summary statistic. So now I'd like to create some descriptive statistic for our mileage rating variable, right? So in this comment, I'm just going to type sum rating, click enter. And in the report result window, you see that some basic summary statistic is produced for you. You have the number of observations, the mean, the standard deviation, the minimum, and the maximum. Okay. Alternatively, you can also use summarize rating. Again, it's the same thing. You can just remember sum as its abbreviation. I think it works well. You can also summarize multiple variables, for example, rating and VAR3, which is the same data. And it will list both variables and with its summary statistics. If you do not list any variable but just to type sum, it will basically provide summary statistics to all the variables you have. Okay? The observation, again, it is considered as a variable in Stata, but this is not really a variable. It's an ID number from 1 to 100. Okay? Alternatively, you have some options here. You can allow or ask Stata to provide more detailed summary statistic, and the comment is to have comma detail. Okay, so sum rating comma detail, and if you click enter, it will give you a more detailed descriptive statistic. You still have the observation, the mean, the standard deviation. Alternatively, you have the percentiles and some variance and so on. So sometimes if you want to find the median or the percentile, you can take a look at this detailed summary comment, right? By comparing the mean and the median, you can take a look at the skewness of your distribution. Okay, so there's a little abbreviation for the detail. So if you type sum rating comma DE, basically that's the same comment. So you can, if you feel like to remember all the abbreviations, feel free to do so. But I think as a beginner, probably remember it as detail. You can understand the comments more intuitively. It's up to you to how you want to keep it in your note. Okay, so of course there are some other options. So to learn any additional options that can be applied for a single comment, you can always use the help comment to learn additional options. So the help comment is usually you type help and you type the comment after help. So help sum, and it will go to like an additional help menu, and you want to help for the summarize comment, click on that. It will tell you what other options that you can use. sometimes it will create or produce some examples for you to study and try by yourself. Okay. The last thing to be a little bit careful is that Stata is case sensitive. So for all the comment, you should always use lower case. Okay, so you can, it allows abbreviation, but it's case sensitive. So for example, if I type sum, S, and rating, it will show an error message. Sometimes you have a hint there saying that the comment sum is unrecognized. Usually this is resulted in two reasons. The first reason is that there's no such comment because you used the capital case, or sometimes you have to install that comment package for more advanced comment package. Okay, it is also sensitive for the variable name. For example, if you want to sum ratings with an R that is in the uppercase, and if you click enter, it says that the variable rating not found. So it's actually case sensitive. No worries if you ever get any error message. Just try to examine your comment and read the error message and to figure it out. Okay. Alternatively, we have some additional comments to create the summary statistic that you are particularly interested, that you want to report. And this is good for, again, quantitative information. So the comment is called tab stats. And again, it can be applied to, it can be followed with one variable or multiple variables. And if you need to give a comma and stats in the parentheses, you tell which summary statistics you want to use. Okay, you have many summary statistics, including mean, range, percentile 25, percentile 50, this is median, percentile 75, the interquartile range, IQR, variance, SD. You can have multiple summary statistics in the parentheses as well. Okay, so you just need to do tab stats, stat, and variable name, maybe just one variable, comma, stat, and maybe say I want the mean, I want the median, I want the variance, I want the standard deviation. I also want to see 25 percentile and 90 percentile. You can list as much as you'd like, and if you click enter, it will give you all the variables, all the summary statistics of the variables you asked for. Okay. Alternatively, if you want to compare any summary statistic on different variables, you can do tab stat. I'm going to consider observation as a variable because I do not have many data sets here. So observation, rating, variable 3, comma, stat. For example, I only want to compare the standard deviation. I only keep the standard deviation. Click enter. You actually see the standard deviation here and the associated values for the 3 variables you asked for. So I think this is a good alternative where, for example, when you are solving for some questions and you want to compare for any summary statistic, you can use this comment. But again, the most popular comment is summarize. To take a look at your summary result one more time, you can double click on your history review window. Double click comment number 3. Without typing it again, it will re-execute for you. Okay. So next, I'm going to introduce the box plot that we previously learned, which is very useful to take a look at the quantitative data and examine outliers. Comment is graph box and followed with either a single variable or multiple variables. Okay, so you just need to type graph box rating. Click enter and it will create a box plot for you. If you recall from class example, we have 2 outliers. Okay, You can also create multiple box plots. See, I'm just clicking on the command 15, and then I'm going to add another variable, which is the same variable, but just to show you that the graph box command can be followed by multiple variables. If you click enter, you have 2 box plots created. If you'd like to save your graph, you go to File, Save or Save As, and you can either save it as a Stata graph file, because later on you can just double click that file and it will open in Stata. But if you're happy with all the results, you can also save it as a PNG file. This is usually the graph file, and or a PDF file. Okay, so it's up to you to save it in multiple graphic formats. Now I'm going to close it. So the next thing is to work you through on the additional files and additional tools so that you can work with Stata assignment in this course. So usually the first thing that I recommend you to do is to create a working folder for this class. And once you do that, you want to change the Stata working directory to that folder. You can either use the cd command, which stands for change directory, and give this the path of your working folder. Alternatively, you can use this you can use this file and change working directory. So go to File and change working directory. Okay. So the requirement for this Stata assignment is you're going to submit log file for each assignment. And if any questions are asked in the assignment, please make sure that you are going to type a star in the comment box so that your answer will be stored as a comment or as a sentence, not a comment. Okay, so just a little bit more with the idea of a log file. So the log file, as previously mentioned, the result window cannot store any generated output. When it will be, all the results will be deleted once you exit the program. So what you do is you can create a log file, which you can open the log file from the menu or from the toolbar. So to create a log file, you can go to File, Log, and begin a new log file, which is stored from some space, right? Or alternatively, you can click on this toolbar that says log. You can begin a log file from here. But in this course, because we're going to focus on many Stata commands, I do recommend you to use the log command to create and save output in a log file. Okay, so I'm going to show you the best way to work with exercise and assignments in this course. So first of all, you want to load a data set, right? I can actually open a new data set, the S1 example. So you can load the data set. The second step is you're going to change and set the working directory. If you do not set the working directory, there are two different ways. The first is that the Stata will set the default, which is where the Stata program is installed. Second, sometimes if you already load a dataset successfully, it will use the directory of that dataset. But in case that you created a log file and later on you cannot find it, I always recommend you to, for example, create a folder, new working folder that's called, for example, assignment or problem sets. And you're going to change working directory to that folder. So it's in my Google Drive, Stata session and assignment. So I'm going to click on that folder and click OK, so that if you see CD, actually my path is already given to Stata. This is the working directory that I'm going to set. And later on, once you create a log file, you will see log file generated in this working folder. I also recommend you to just download your problem set data into that folder as well. So the next step is you're going to use the command log using name log. Remember, you can replace the name with your own name or a file name. So for example, now I'm going to use command log using example log. Click enter and it will create a log. It will start a log file for you. If you go to the folder, you see actually a log file that's called example. You can replace the file name to anyone that you like, your name or the homework number. Okay, so step 4, you're going to work on your problems, right? So for example, you can sum your variable, and to answer any questions, you first type a star and say question 1, the mean of rating is 37. And you type enter, it will only keep this phrase, as a comment. It will not execute this as a comment because you added a little star here. So this is how you can answer the Stata assignment questions. And once you've done with all your problems, then the next step is you can use the command log close to tell Stata that you are done with your log file. So type log close. And actually it's done. Everything that you worked with, all the output, is already automatically stored in this log file. If you go to your working folder and you open this example, you will see this log file as a text file. And you have any answers that is also typed in this result window. So I can see and grade both your comment and also the answers. The last one, an alternative step, is sometimes the log file are usually in a text file, but sometimes if you do not, a text file is editable, and so if you do not want to share an editable text file, you can convert your current log file into a PDF file. So the command is translate the name of the log and the name of the log. You can use a new name though, and .pdf. Okay, so the log name was example in my case. So I'm going to type translate example.log space example.pdf and click enter, and it actually will convert or translate the log file into a PDF file. Again, if you go to your working folder, you see a PDF file created for you. You can either submit a text file or a PDF file in this course. Although I always prefer a PDF file. Okay. Oh, by the way, because if your assignment is on creating and showing any figures, and because Stata will generate figure in a different window, not in the result window, so you do have to save that figures as a separate PNG file or PDF file to submit along with your assignment. It will not be included and show in your result window and in your log file. Okay. There are 2 additional things that I want you to know. The first one is if, say, you made some mistakes of your previous log file and you want to replace the previous one. Of course, another thing is you can create a new log file with a different name, or alternatively, you can use log using name and replace. So for example, now I'm going to use log using the same log name .log. If I don't use replace, if I enter, it will show that this log file is already exists, right? But if I'm going to add replace, it will allow me to continue. So now I'm going to summarize rating in detail. Okay, and my answer is the mean is 37, and then log close. If you go to my example log file, it's actually the new question. Okay, the PDF file is still the original one. You can later translate it, right? And alternatively, but of course, be careful when you use replace, because it will clear all the previous work that you've done. Alternatively, if you want to work on different questions at different time, and you can use the append option. Right? So for example, just now I closed my log file, and now I come back, I'd like to continue to work with my log file for the second question. So I'm going to do log using example log, comma, append, and I'm going to maybe work on a different comment that says tab stat rating stat P25, P50, P75, and then log close. Now if you take a look at your example file, it will actually show, it will continue to record your log at 2 different times with the second question that you'd like to show. Okay, so these are the 2 additional options. It's up to you. The next thing is to create what's called a do file. The do file is basically you can type all the comments and codes or any sentences with a star, not from the comment window, but from the do file window. This window allows you to save all the comments in a do file, and then you can run the whole comments or rerun a section of the comment. It is very helpful when you want to open all of the comments you previously worked on and change the comments or add additional comments. Okay, and also you can, by sharing and exchanging the do files, you can collaborate with each other. So basically, you can create a do file by simply open this little icon that's called new do file editor. Okay, so in this new do file editor, you can actually work on your homework from here. So for example, you can write, so the problem 1, I'm going to summarize rating. I'm also going to summarize rating in detail, and I'd like to find the rating in terms of standard deviation, variance, and P50. Okay, and you can also put any of the answers here. The mean is, and maybe you have to run it first at least once, but you can keep a do file here. The do file is you can run, for example, a section of the comment. So for example, if you want to run this line, comment line, you just need to select this comment line and click on this execute selection icon. So click on that and it will run this comment for you. And the comment itself is actually to do something. Okay. Alternatively, if you've written all of your assignment and if you'd like to check if any comment runs very well, you can just click on this do execute icon so that all the comments in this do file will run all together. Okay, so you see all this all together. So sometimes to create a relatively cleaner log file for the homework submission, you can first create a do file and store all of the comments, store all of the answers, and then once you make sure that all the comments maybe examine each line of comments and make sure that they run and they produce output successfully, then you can create a log file, log using maybe problem set 1.log, and just run your do file and then use log close. And then you go to your working folder, you have your problem set 1 successfully created, and then you can submit a relatively cleaner version for grading. If not, if you directly start a log file and work on the comments, you may encounter many typos or error messages, and your log file will be really long, and you don't have to retype your log file. So this is the benefit of having a do file in addition to the log file. The do file does not have any output here. So therefore, in terms of homework submission in this course, I only need you to submit your log file as a text file or a PDF file.